So let's start with DK of the Family Fin. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and you should be good to go now.
First of all, I have your book. I got it for free. Well, I had to pay the postage. So I guess first I should say thank you for it. I've been enthusiastically trying to make my way through it. I'm on page 91, so it's like maybe a third done.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I guess,
Awesome.
well, yeah, maybe one question would be, because I was thinking of first starting in web design and then switching over to SEO.
Okay.
I could just go straight into SEO, but although I've been building websites for years, I'm sort of new to this client thing. Although I have had clients before for other things, but that was anyway. I've made affiliate websites before and ranked them.
Okay.
So I can use like one of those as a portfolio or in my portfolio. And actually, I've been doing this SEO affiliate marketing for a while. So much so that one of my sites is in archive.org because it's the affiliate program for a number of them, these sites that I built. I can think of two of them where the affiliate programs just stopped. And that was
Okay.
like a long time ago, but they're archived, so I could use those as as legacy in my portfolio. I don't know. I can do both. What's your feedback?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in the beginning, the best thing you can do is focus, because the easiest thing to do is just see, like, I struggle with this too, and this especially in the beginning. There's so much opportunity. There's opportunity everywhere. And when you know how to do SEO, when you know how to get SEO results, you start to see opportunity on every corner. And so the biggest struggle that I had in the beginning was just you do have to kind of turn off some of the opportunity and you have to get focused in. So I know you said you have web design experience. And so obviously I'm going to give you an answer that's largely based on how to build an SEO business. And the truth is, like, there's many different ways, as they say, to skin a cat, right? So, and for me, I prefer the method of picking one service offering. So whether that's SEO, whether that's web design, whatever it is, just pick one. Then from there, once you've picked that core service offering, then you need to figure out how are you going to niche down within that core service offering. And we can talk about tactics all day as far as driving leads and driving clients. But at the end of the day, everything gets easier when you actually narrow down your focus. And so, for example, if you were just going to be an SEO company, that would be really, really difficult, like incredibly competitive to go after that. In fact, if you go to Clutch right now, I think there's like 40,000 SEO companies just in the United States alone, right? Just pure SEO companies. So there's a lot of competition. But how many SEO companies do you know that just focus on endodontists? There aren't a whole lot, right? You're basically competing against no one. You might be competing against maybe one or two companies max. So what I'd be thinking about is, like, pick that core service offering and don't be afraid to get narrow, because when you get narrow, you can get focused in. Your marketing gets easier. You can actually talk to your ideal client a lot easier. Your sales gets easier because you're talking to a lot of similar prospects who are in the same industry. And your fulfillment gets easier because you're working on a lot of similar sites and a lot of similar situations in the same industry. Trust me, and speaking from experience, one of the worst things to do is just bounce from one different client to the next. Because every client is a different frame of mind. Like, ranking a roofer versus ranking a SaaS company can be wildly different, like wildly different. So that, that cost of switching can be pretty huge. So I would just focus in, try to figure out what that niche is. I actually have 4,000 niches you can pick from if you get the book. And anyone who's late here, book at the end, I'll be giving away one for free if you don't have it. But when you do get the book, I actually give a whole database of 4,000 niches that I actually pulled directly from Google Business. All the Google Business profiles, I pulled those all. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think people just get scared because they think they're going to miss out on opportunity by niching down, but you're actually making it way more difficult for yourself. So, and as far as the service offering on the front end, like, you can sell web design on the front end and then just sell SEO on the back end. Those complement each other really, really well, and vice versa too. You can sell SEO on the front end and then sell the website build on the back end. But what you don't want to see, like I just see this so often. I see these agency sites, and they're making, let's say they're making less than $30,000 a month, and I look at the site and they're offering like 50 different things, and it's just really hard to beat someone who's just going to say, I only do link building for SaaS companies. Like, how are you going to beat someone like that? You have no chance if you're offering social media, SEO, web design, web development, like all these things. So you can offer all of those supporting services, but just do it on the back end. Do it as an upsell. But on the front end, get very narrowly focused. So I would start there. It's kind of the first place. All right. Kristen, let's go with you. Okay, I think I just asked you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. I can. You're coming through clearly.
Okay, great. So I am doing SEO and to some extent also social media, some web stuff for specifically bars and restaurants that are in tourist destinations.
Okay.
So my question for you is, being that I'm seeking to get them local SEO, like Mexican food near me, but also the pre-travel intent search results like best beach bar in Anguilla. Just off the top of your expert mind, what would you say to focus on in successfully doing both?
Yeah. So you're talking more about just the overall SEO strategy for these types of businesses.
Right, considering
Yeah.
I want both the regular SEO before people travel and then the local.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to have to probably blend a little bit of national and localized intent. However, this can get a little tricky because sometimes when you're targeting local queries, there's a tendency to want to go national by answering a lot of these questions. So you want to be really careful. You don't want to go too national, because as soon as you enter national based queries without some sort of geo modifier on there, like a city, for example, you're going to start competing with the juggernauts. And not only that, it won't build the type of topic authority that you need on the local level. So like, to build proper, topic authority on the local level, we should be combining two things together. Number one should be the topic level. So for example, if I have an SEO training program in St. Louis, I could technically create a post about SEO training that targets national. But the problem is I'm only 50% of the way on that relevant scale. So I need to have other stuff that's specifically targeting SEO training plus a location to be able to get that proper 100% match. And I see this all the time in the personal injury space in particular. Like, they'll target something like, what is personal injury as a topic? Now, that is relevant, but it's not going to be relevant to a personal injury lawyer in St. Louis. And so I would rather target something like car accident data statistics in Chesterfield, right? Because then I'm actually building both topics on the same level. So that's where my mind goes with on the local level, is getting really, really granular focused is so critical. Because honestly, the national stuff, like, it doesn't hurt you. It could certainly drive some traffic, but as far as building proper relevance, it's not going to be the most effective. So yeah.
Well, just to follow up, then are you sort of saying focus most on local and let the national be a byproduct of, kind of building up your authority on the local level?
Yeah, I mean, if the primary keywords you're going after have local intent, then you should be building local content. So now, if it's like in the case of what you were saying, like a bar, like, best bars in Chesterfield, Missouri, that technically still has localized intent. So that would work in that case. So yeah, so you're kind of combining like a listicle kind of informational asset, but it still has localized intent. So it doesn't really matter the type of asset that it is, it just matters that it has that, that localized intent. As long as you're going after local keywords, that's my assumption here. So yeah.
Okay, I think I get it. So basically, if I have the local keywords, even if someone's searching from California for a beach bar in the Caribbean,
Yes.
in a certain island, they will put in that island and
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I'm based in St. Louis, right? My company's based in St. Louis, but I have pages that are ranking in Santa Monica, California for Santa Monica, California queries. If I would have just put like, if I would just made a page like best SEO company, it would have just basically lumped it into probably St. Louis. But because I added that Santa Monica modifier, now whenever someone searches even in Santa Monica, they see my stuff, even though I'm not there. Right. So it's the same exact concept. So you just need to make sure that you still have that localized intent to make sure you're getting placed where you need to get placed in that set of search results. So
Okay, cool. Thank you.
yep. My pleasure. Yep. All right. Let's see here. Jason. Jason, you're up. Good to see you, Jason.
Good to see you. I like those examples in that last what is PI and
I picked him just for you. So yeah.
um quick questions on AMP in 2024. If a website's
Okay.
moving away from AMP, would you recommend to redirect all of the AMP pages to the new URLs? And then if so, is there ever a time period where you would suggest to remove those as the AMP pages disappear over time, essentially?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I was pretty bullish on AMP there for a while, like a few years back. I really just because it made everything so fast, like blazing
Right.
fast, which was super beneficial. But there's just kind of unfortunately the support for it seemed to kind of decline over time. And so I many years ago made the transition away from it. So I would anyone who's on it currently, unless you have like really like a news driven site, there might be some utility in doing it. But I think even then you can basically transition away from it and just kind of because at the end of the day, we want to kind of have the same URL structure no matter what.
Right.
Right. Like we don't want to have kind of like a separate structure for AMP and a separate structure for mobile and it just gets so messy. You got to run canonical tags. It just gets real nasty. So I'd rather have just one type of URL structure that remains consistent. So as far as executing that, I would, yeah, exactly. Run a 301 redirect to the whatever that URL is going to be, the one that's going to be the consistent variation that you're going to use for sure.
And
Yeah.
keep that redirect there forever.
I see that's debatable. I mean, Google says you should keep redirects up to a year.
Right.
I whether I keep a redirect is largely dependent on if there's any signals that need to pass. Like, so if there's any signals that need to pass through there, I'll probably keep it. But if there are no signals, I'll probably pull it after a year. Once that's been removed from the index, and I know for sure it's out of the index, it has no signals. I'll probably remove it because it is actually a load on the server, right?
Right. With
So
that's
yeah,
that's the issue with all the redirects we already have. We're like, we put more redirects on top of it so the goal is to get the load time down, but as long as we have
right.
that.
Yeah, yeah, I think you'll be good to go for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Yep, my pleasure. All right. Let's see here. Kyle, go for it, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me. So
My pleasure.
I manage a site. I'm the internal head of SEO on a pretty big site. We get around 800,000 organic monthly visitors. So it's definitely a big site. It's been around for like
Okay.
20 years. We're in the real estate niche.
Okay.
And I kind of joined the company within the past few months, so and they never really had like a head of SEO, so it's just a mess. I'm walking into a mess. They have a ton of like thousands and thousands of articles. A lot of them are very outdated, very poor quality. So one of my first approaches is to clean up a bunch of that. Um, so two quick questions. So the first one is I'm trying to get like kind of like a case study. Like, do you have or do you know that that's like a good approach in terms of like have you seen success with removing, unpublishing, maybe like redirecting like old, outdated, poorly written content? I'm seeing like half of our articles not even ranking for like a single keyword, and it's very off topic. So I want to, focus the topical authority on a specific, our niche, because I think we're really diluting a lot of our topical authority. So, do you think that's a good approach? Do you think it's a good idea with I know you have limited context, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, the first thing that I ever do in the beginning of any campaign is I do kind of what you're describing, which is I run a crawl on the whole site and just bring in all the data that I can. So I'll use Screaming Frog and I'll integrate all the APIs that can really help me get a good understanding of the site as a whole. So that's going to be, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Ahrefs, which is really the only API that works in the context of Google as far as Screaming Frog. So the first move that I'm looking at once that crawl is done, I will look at non-indexable pages, but typically I'm just going to be looking at the indexable pages.
Mhm.
And the first move that I'm looking for is what can I delete? That is my first place I begin. I want to
Oh,
see,
really? Wow.
yeah, I want to see what's the first, like, how can we just prune this site? And when I think of pruning, there's different methods we can use, but ultimately there's two things that can typically happen. Number one, you're just going to straight delete it and let it 404, right? And those are the easiest to identify because what you're going to do is if you use Screaming Frog, you can just go ahead and look for any URL that has basically goose eggs across the board as far as search, as far as traffic in Google Analytics
Yeah.
and users. And then most importantly in Google Search Console, seeing that it has no impressions, no clicks, and then on the Ahrefs side of that data, no backlinks, right?
Yep.
So if it's got that all the way across the board, it's going to at least get put into a bucket for potential deletion. And when I say deletion, I mean delete and 404, no redirects, no consolidation, just let it go. And so that's one bucket of things. Now, keep in mind, there's one nuance there. Occasionally, you'll encounter a set of URLs that are new. So you got to be careful and make sure it's not like a newly published asset, right? Because technically, a newly published, yeah. So just be careful on that. But typically, if you're looking at it, you're going to find just a lot of those pages, especially on the site of that size that's attracted that much traffic. So you're going to find a lot of stuff that you can at least put in that bucket is like, okay, we should probably just cut this fat off. So I will start there because that's like the quickest wins for cleaning up the site is just that type of stuff that just isn't adding any value in any regard, right? Because even if it was adding like brand value, if it was adding brand value, it would have some sort of traffic, it would have some sort of API to support its existence. So if it has nothing, then it's pretty much done. The only exception too on that is like maybe it has blog comments. Occasionally that might be the case. So maybe it's got some existing comments. In some cases, we may try to transfer those comments over to another post if they're worth salvaging, but usually you won't really find that typically. So I would start there. Then I would start to loosen up the filters and just start to look at assets that I would call like underperforming, right? So maybe they've got, they have no traffic from Google Analytics, but maybe they have like 100 impressions on Google Search Console. Okay. Typically, when you dig into that, like you actually go into Google Search Console and like look at that one page, you'll see like the impressions are from just nonsense, basically, typically. So then you've got another bucket of pages where it's like, well, these just have not done well. So from that's where things get a little bit trickier because you're not necessarily going to want to delete them because maybe they've got a little bit of something that can be salvaged.
Yeah.
So in that case, you're going to be looking either you might look for consolidation, which is like taking that content and putting it on another page that's maybe needs a little bit of content love.
Sure.
And then the other option would be a redirection. And I will only do a 301 redirect in this case if it has existing backlinks and I can find like an apples to apples, type of page. So that's where my mind goes when I start to think about a site of that size. I'm just looking for like, where can we start to just clean things up, basically?
Yeah. And then the articles that are like definitely like not in our niche, you know what I mean? Like those are definitely a good starting point. Like remove it, like topical authority dilution definitely a thing. I should look at those in terms because some of them might have like a few impressions or whatever, but it's like definitely
Yeah.
not something that our audience cares about, and I don't want Google to associate us with that kind of topic. So like by removing a ton of the off-topic stuff, would that help boost our on-topic stuff over time because of like the topical authority focus?
Yeah, it's a tricky question.
Mhm.
So the reason I keep going back kind of to the data is because unfortunately, so the data doesn't lie, right? So that's why I start with the data, because I can make decisions. Now the challenge is you could theoretically have an asset that isn't a perfect match for the topic authority that you're trying to build,
Yeah.
but it has KPIs.
Yeah.
so
True.
so you're trying to figure out that issue. Now I do agree with what you're saying as far as like, yeah, there could be dilution, but what I do see some people do is they'll go kind of head on with this idea and be like, all right, well, we're just going to eliminate anything that's irrelevant according to us.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that as long as those pages are deserving to be eliminated. But the other thing you have to consider too is you don't want to just get in the process of pure elimination, because
Mhm.
elimination without replacement won't be effective. So I can just tell you an example of a campaign that we did. Client came to us. They had 4,000 pages. Like I think it was like over 4,000 pages, getting
Mhm.
barely any traffic at all. So of course I just went through the process I just described. We pruned a bunch of stuff. We ended up deleting, I think, like 90% of their pages. Um, but we didn't just delete the pages. As we were deleting them, we were increasing publishing velocity and increasing the quality of the content. So I'm not saying you're going to do this in particular, Kyle, but I'm just saying that is something I want to mention, because I do see people do that. They're like, well, we deleted all this bad content. Why didn't our traffic go up? And I'm like, well, you also got to, you have to build you got to actually build the topic authority as well, right?
Yeah.
Deleting, yeah.
We do
So
have a pretty good publishing cadence now too.
yeah,
I think we have I'm more on the SEO side of things, obviously. So I manage a lot of the no, the evergreen content, and then we also have like an editorial team that does a lot of the editorial content.
right.
But yeah, I'm trying to get them to focus, like, hey, make sure not to go totally off topic here. Because yeah, I think that's what the problem was back in the day before they had an SEO. It was like they were really trying to just publish things because they knew it was trending, even if it was off topic. So we have a whole category on our blog about like the pandemic, and it like doesn't even relate to to
Yeah.
our like niche. So I'm just trying to make like a proof case for like senior leadership to say, hey, like, if we remove this content, because they were just always under the impression like more content's good. And I'm just trying to say like, well,
Yeah.
this content's not the greatest, and it's probably like the reason why some of our important pages are losing some, rankings.
Yeah.
But that's good to know. The last part of the question, I guess, is I feel like we're seeing rankings improve a lot, like overall our keyword rankings, but it seems like we're still seeing like a decrease in clicks and traffic. And I'm like, what's your overall take on the state of the SERPs in terms of do you think, organic search results are getting like less and less clicks so over the past few years just because of everything Google's adding there?
The short answer is yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, this has been, I mean, even without, all the influx of AI related things that are going on, even
Mhm.
prior to that, this has been happening for years with featured snippets and incident answers and all the SERP features that are going on. Plus just ads in general pushing organic below the fold. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, clicks, and it depends on the industry that you're in. So, like, if you're in e-commerce, like, it's tough out there, man. Like it's
Yeah.
really tough. Google is making it very difficult to get clicks. Let's just say that much. It's
Gotcha.
becoming very challenging. So it does depend on the industry. It does depend on the type of keywords you're going after. But what I've been doing, and maybe this is something, whether you're working with clients, or you're doing your own type of SEO in house, just lower your estimates. just lower your estimates down as far as what your overall clicks are going to be. And then from there, you can get just kind of a more, let's say, a conservative estimate as far as traffic, right? So that's kind of what I've been doing, just kind of lowering my estimate slightly, kind of giving a range. Like here's like the low end range of where we could be, and here's the high end range, and then try to find, where we end up.
Yeah, I think we're like a lot of my, senior leadership is like looking at numbers from like 2021, and we're trying to compare, the analytics, the search console, and like looking at our rankings and trying to come up with some kind of, detective work and like what happened, because it really looks like we took a big dip since, the past 3 years. And I know the algorithm has updated a lot too, so it could partially be that, but when we like look in SEMrush, our rankings, like it doesn't look like things have gone crazy low compared to, the dips in traffic that we're seeing organically. So
yeah, and this is why it's so important. Like I know it's very old school. People are like, well, you should never just don't track individual keywords. Like that's outdated. But actually, I think it's more important than ever because for this exact reason. Because if you're not tracking individual keywords, you're not like if your keyword rankings are staying in the spots, if you're still ranking number one, but your traffic is falling, your clicks are falling, then you know that's not something you've technically done wrong. It's just it's the architecture of the SERPs that's causing those clicks to go down, that CTR to go down, because your rankings are the same. So that's why for me, I still track to this day. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I still track individual keyword rankings. I do, because it's literally the only thing that I can look at and say, okay, we're number one, but our clicks have gone down. So therefore, if I go to the SERPs, I expect to see, oh, there we go. There's an instant answer, a featured snippet, or eventually SG's answering it. Like I can, just based on the data, I can probably make a pretty quick conclusion to what's going on. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So make sure you're tracking both. And obviously you can do that in SEMrush or Ahrefs, whichever tool you'd like, or you have dedicated rank trackers. It doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
But it's just a good idea. So you can just see both sides of that equation. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah. Glad to help. All right. Let's see here. We're going to do Ali. Ali, you're up.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for doing the class today. I appreciate it.
My
So
pleasure.
I have an e-commerce site, and my question is regarding I'm in the middle of trying to create like a schedule for our copywriter for our blogs, and I'm looking at specifically the silo technique. I have a category page that I'm targeting. So my question is that the best technique for e-commerce? And should the parent page be the actual category page, or should it be the first blog we create?
Okay. Good question. All right. Let me open something up here. This will help a little bit. So I believe I was one of the earliest people to talk about this. And you can go and find this type of thing if you can see my screen. 2 in the chat if you can see my screen. 2 in the chat if you can see my screen. Let's see here. Okay, good. All right. So this is, as you can tell, my very old logo that's on this. This concept here is still applicable to today, and it's really applicable to e-commerce. And in fact, it's really applicable to any business. In fact, this is the exact thing that I do on the local level too. So e-commerce, local, doesn't make a difference. And so for me, what I like to think in reverse. So typically when you look at an e-commerce site, everyone's thinking from top down, which is homepage, category page, product page, and at the bottom you might have blog posts, right? So that's usually the way people are thinking in that order. But I like to think in the reverse. And the reason I think in the reverse is because unfortunately, category pages, product pages, they're just not super linkable types of assets, right? They don't usually have any linkable qualities. And what will happen is people will they'll drive links to these category pages or product pages. And yes, it can work, but what it does is it elevates your risk. your risk gets substantially elevated because you're linking to pages that don't really deserve links, right?
Mhm.
So whether you're acquiring them naturally or you're buying them, doesn't make a difference. A link is a link. And the page that you're hitting does create a footprint. And there's a certain, this is how Google can typically detect link building practices just by these footprints that we leave, right? And I used to be a gray hat SEO. And so I used to really be super crazy about these little footprints. Now I don't do not as serious about it, but I still take a lot of the footprint concepts from gray hat SEO and apply them today. And so the reason I'm saying that is because the best way to let's just say muddy the waters for Google so they don't really know, like, are they buying links? Are they link building? Are they trying to do SEO? Like, the way to muddy the waters is you drive links to actual assets that deserve links. And the only types of assets that really deserve links in a lot of cases, number one, your homepage can have a lot of links, just because if you're building a brand, getting links to your homepage is totally normal for that to happen. But outside of your homepage, you're pretty much like, a lot of your links should be going to informational assets. So that's going to be blog content. That could be tools. Like, for example, on Gotcha SEO, I created a script timer here. Like, I used ChatGPT to build this whole thing for me. Okay. I built this whole thing. Funny thing is, I'm not a coder. Like, I can do SEO well, but I'm not really a coder. So I had ChatGPT build this thing for me. And this is an example of a linkable asset. Okay. I can drive links to this thing literally all day without any fear of getting penalized. I would just keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it because this page deserves links. No fear.
Yeah,
So,
I understand
yeah.
exactly where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. Now, if I just take it a step further with the cool blog posts, right? So if I get it, you have to do it in reverse with the links. But if I'm gonna build from that cool blog post, is that gonna be my parent page and then build down from that with the blogs? Or how do I target the category page? Is it from the internal links? Like, are all the blogs
Yeah.
underneath the cool blog post going to go to the category page instead of going to the cool blog post?
Good question. So yeah, you're asking kind of about the architecture and the URL structure, I'm assuming. So the way that so this is one thing that people get pretty mixed up. They will look at URL structure and think that URL structure is architecture, and they're separate things altogether. When it comes to flowing authority and flowing link equity through your site, it's pretty much only accomplished through internal linking. So you're going to achieve that either by your primary navigation and your faceted navigation that's site wide, but you also want to have internal links within the body of those blog posts, going to the category page, going to the product page, potentially even going to the homepage. Okay. So that's what you're trying to do. And ultimately what you want to do is you want to take this like concept of a blog post, just informational asset, and you want to build as much support as possible around that category page. And that's kind of long-term plans, just build that topic authority around that category page to build support. The more you do that, the more internal link coverage you get to that category page, and the more link equity that will pass to it, which means, and I just use the concept of a rising tide lifts all ships. And everything will rise. And I've tested this tremendously. And I've had sites where literally we took one blog post and we made it our focal point for all of our link building. Like, it was the only page we built links to on the whole site. And it literally raised every single page's rankings across the board. So, yeah.
Okay. So just really quickly, like, I get this is the reverse. So I'm just going to do it like a traditional silo, right? Let's say the home, the category page, the product page. Then you have the cool blog posts underneath that. You have the children underneath that. So should I make it a point to send internal links to the category page since that's the one I'm targeting, or should it just go to that the father blog post?
Good question. So I think one thing is, when people start to think in silos, they start to get tunnel vision, right? They start to think like, we get tunnel vision. We're like, all right, this has to be like specifically in this silo or we're done for.
Okay.
Not the way it has to be at all.
All right, sure.
In fact, I cross-link across silos. I cross-link across pages and categories and products. In fact, what you want is maximum internal link coverage. Like try to achieve as much internal link coverage as possible. And of course, keep your cluster. Like I like to think more in the concept of a cluster as opposed to a silo. But like if you're targeting blue shoes, like as your category, then all of the little assets surrounding that category should all be closely related to that topic. And you're internally linking to each other and, cross-linking and all that stuff. But it doesn't mean that you can't take your blue shoes cluster and cross-link over to your yellow shoes cluster, right?
Should every blog though link to the category page?
You said should every blog post? Is that what you asked?
Every blog post that I build, underneath this category, should it eventually link within the text to the category page?
As long as it's relevant, yeah. As long as it's relevant, you should link to whatever category page is relevant to that blog post. So yeah, it's just maintain the relevance. That's the key. Like if you're going to place a link, make sure it's relevant. That's it. Like don't overthink it. Typically the thing that's holding back most e-commerce sites is just a lack of content production. You need to get more content. That way that gives you more avenues for internal linking. It gives you more opportunities to even acquire links naturally as well, putting a lot of lines in the ocean. So that's the strategy. But yeah, definitely don't get so focused on just like the style. Like if you go outside of it, like your rankings are going to tank. It's just not true. Just won't happen.
Question.
Yeah.
So I saw an example, I think it was IKEA, where on the category page, they actually, they tried, you can see that they're, answering all the intent of the user on that page, right? So they have links from the category page to different blog posts, to different subcategories. Do you think that's an ideal strategy? Like, of course, much smaller e-commerce business, does it make sense to target it that way, or is that overkill?
I think it always goes back to what's best for the user. Like if you start from that perspective, like is that beneficial for someone who's on a category page that has commercial intent to send them to a blog post? Maybe in some cases that might be helpful, right? But if it's some sort of information that would help them make a better buying decision, then it might be better suited to actually show up on that category page to help them, make that decision, right? So it's kind of a variable situation. But in general, like you do want to be careful kind of mixing intents. Like for example, if someone has informational intent, let's say they come into your site through a blog post, it's what are blue shoes? They're reading your blog post about what are blue shoes. Then at the end of you say, hey, by the way, we actually sell the best blue shoes on the planet. Go over to our category page and with this 10% discount code and you try to push them deeper into the funnel. That makes perfect sense, right? Because you're going top of the funnel, deeper into the funnel. But doing the reverse of that can be a little awkward, right? Because if someone comes in, they like type in something that has commercial intent, like buy blue shoes, they end up on your category page and then you send them to a blog post about the history of blue shoes. You just lost them. So
I think it's more like for a keyword like just blue shoes, right? Without the buy, because then when you're landing on blue shoes, it could be interpreted as a different intent. But I understand what you mean. Thank you.
Right. Yep. My pleasure. All right. Let's see. Katie.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. Yeah. Great to talk to you. Yeah. Hi. So I got your amazing book. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Awesome.
I started my blog about a year ago and I was brand new to SEO, but I've been learning everything I possibly can over the last year. So I've got a mom blog and I'd really like to offer some SEO services to other sort of companies in my niche. But I'm not really sure where to start. I mean, I specifically mostly write about breastfeeding, breast pumping, that kind of thing, and then various other sort of pregnancy, postpartum, baby development. So naturally, I feel like I should be reaching out to sort of breast pump brands that sort of do other products, that sort of thing. But I've tried sending emails and I just struggle to even get them opened, and they're pretty detailed. Like I've already done some sort of HRS data on their sites and various other things, but I'm struggling to get anybody to respond. So, I mean, am I better off sort of super niching down, or should I sort of sort of open up a little bit? I mean, what would you do if you're in my position?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track for already thinking about niching down. So you're already thinking about it, which is good. But I think it's probably a matter of just kind of narrowing down to what that target market really is, right? So like, pumps, for example, like, yeah, there's a lot of companies that sell those, but that market's going to be pretty tight, and you're going to be dealing with enterprise level marketing companies that are, let me just tell you, some of these companies, you would not believe the lengths they go to win those contracts. I mean, I know a few like here in St. Louis, these advertising companies, and they will spend 2 years trying to win a deal. Like it is a serious, and they will literally they'll build entire websites just to win the deal. Like it's like crazy when you see what they will do. And so that's why, you got to kind of figure out, like, are you going the small business kind of target market, or are you going the enterprise market? Because those are wildly different strategies. So like for small businesses, and technically most businesses are small businesses. I think it's like 90% or something are considered small business. And so in that regard, you can use a lot of inbound marketing techniques. I think inbound marketing is the best way to get clients personally. Nothing against, doing, like I mentioned the book about attack. I think that's a good thing to be doing. But also thinking about how can we get leads coming into us? How we can get people to coming us? Because at the end of the day, like, you want people who want to work with you, right? That's really what you're trying to do. So I know you said you have a blog. Like, a blog is one of the best ways to get leads, because there's people in the academy, for example. I won't say his name because I don't want to out his business here, but he specifically built a blog in the addiction recovery space. Okay, so addiction recovery, he has like all these resources about addiction and recovering from drug situations. But on his site, what he did is he had an advertising tab in there. So he had just advertising. You go to the advertising page, and he would say, hey, by the way, yeah, you can advertise on our site, take advantage of our traffic. By the way, we also do, SEO for addiction recovery companies. And so he had built his entire SEO business doing that. And he did it just by building an asset and driving traffic into his SEO company. And I've actually tested this stuff on the back end. This works really, really well, really well. Now it's of course harder. You got to actually build an asset. You got to build a site. Like, there's a lot of work involved. But as far as bringing in the inbound traffic, that's one way to do it. But I think for you, it's definitely like thinking about, like, how can I niche down, but without getting so narrow that it's like there's like 3 companies that I can basically go after. So you want to go a little bit broader. Like, that's why the example I gave earlier, which was like endodontists. I forgot how many endodontists there are in the US. It's like a couple thousand, like not a ton, right? But when you start to do the math on like a couple thousand, and let's say you get 10% of that market, it's a pretty serious business, right? Like, and these are businesses that have high ticket value. That's what we want to look for. Find businesses that have high ticket value. Like, no offense to the hot dog stands of the world, but it's going to be a tough SEO business if you target hot dog stands, because they're going to have to sell a lot of hot dogs to be able to pay for your retainer, right? And that's the ones I want to basically avoid. I want to go after the ones where, when they think about $2,500 per month, $5,000 per month, it doesn't even like register. They're like, oh yeah, the SEO guy. Okay, cool. They move on with their life. Like, but if it's like 2,500, they're like, this is my life savings. Like, that's not good, right? So you need to find those industries where like that's not that big of an investment ultimately. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's great advice. I was actually talking to a company quite a while, and I was doing some writing for them, and I think I'm talking to the wrong person, but I was trying to get them to understand. I said, look, you've got 252 blogs, only 12 of which are even ranking, and half of those are just ranking for your brand name.
Right.
Seriously, like I'm telling you, there's like potential here. And she was just like, oh, we're not really focusing on any of that. and they pay for all their ads basically. So, I mean, what do you do? I mean, obviously, I'm just going to cut my losses there, but how do you kind of convince people that they need or should look at SEO when they're clearly ignoring that aspect of their business?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I don't try to convince people.
No, okay.
I don't. I mean, if they're so, see, the thing is, like, if that gap is so far as as them understanding the value of SEO and them becoming a client, if that gap is very large, I would rather invest my time and resources in companies and people that are already further ahead in understanding the importance. And, some people just aren't good fits. That's it. I mean, they're just not good fits. And that's the hardest thing in the world to do, is just accept, like, this is not a good fit and just move on. Cut your losses early. This is why having a discovery call will save you a lot of headache, a lot of pain in your career, because I can tell you, I've lost count of the amount of bad deals that I've done. Like, I took on a client when it wasn't a good fit, and I always pay the price. Every time. It is so consistent. You pay the price, because if you don't have buy-in on them actually believing in SEO as a channel, then you're always going to be playing this game every month. Why are we not getting results? What are you doing? And you start playing that game constantly. It stresses you out. It stresses them out. It's just not worth it altogether. So the thing is, we want to focus in on businesses that already understand SEO is a legitimate marketing channel. And once they at least have that base level understanding, then yeah, you may have to work to get them to see the potential return on investment of an SEO campaign. But at that point, you're just using data, right? So what I do, like when I'm developing a proposal, is I'll just look at their industry. Let's say it's a St. Louis endodontist. Okay. I'm going to look at all the keywords and all the search volume that's available in their one little tiny market. Then I'll say, based on this search volume, we can expect that you'll get 25 to 30% of the total clicks of everything here, right? So I can do that math, and I can say, well, then based on the fact that most websites convert at about 2%, that's just like general e-commerce average across all industries, 2%. I can expect you'll get X amount of leads from SEO. And then knowing that I'll do some research ahead of time about the endodontist. Typically, I've had to get a root canal, so I know how much it costs. It's a lot. So yeah. So you can easily do that math for them, and you say, okay, well, based on my projections, this is kind of where, low end, high end of where we can expect. And then as long as your retainer is below what the expected revenue is going to be from SEO, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Because if like they're going to invest $1,000, $1,500, $2,500, and they're going to make an extra $20,000 a month, who wouldn't do that investment? That's the best investment ever. Way better than the stock market. So that's the way that I start to formulate, because the thing is, everyone is driven by emotion. Everyone buys based on emotion. That is true. But business owners in particular, they are very in tune to the dollars and cents. That's what, like, they are very in tune to that. So yeah, I can persuade them. I can get them to move. Hey, if you stay the same, and yeah, I can play that whole game, and but they do want to know, like, what is the ROI going to be? Like, is this worth it? Right. And the thing is, you're not always just competing, like, do I want to work with Katie, for example? That's not necessarily what you're always competing against. Sometimes you're competing against stagnation, right? They just don't want to do anything. So you see this typically in the beginning of the year. They'll be like, hey, let's go do our SEO, and they'll reach out to a bunch of SEO companies and get a bunch of proposals. And then it feels like they've done something, right? It feels like, hey, yeah, we did it. But then guess what? They don't choose a single SEO company, and then they do it again next year. Right? Happens all the time. So it's not always you're competing against a lot of other things, but I think for you, definitely just like spending a lot of time thinking about the niche you're going to go into, and then just commit to it. And there's a lot of ways to go about that. I mean, like, I'll just stick along with this endodontist kind of theme here, but I would be really thinking about, like, I would build location-based websites, like lead generation sites. So if I was targeting like localized businesses, I would rank for like St. Louis endodontists. Like, I'd build a little microsite, rank there, And then the reason I do that is a couple of reasons. Number one, you can build hyper relevant portfolio items. So if you have results showing in their exact industry, you've already like that, you're like halfway to the deal now already, right? So you say, hey, yeah, actually build a site in your city, and here are the rankings. Take a look.
And just fill the site with just content, or would you be using that to sort of showcase sort of the businesses in that city, or what would you kind of?
Yeah, the strategy might vary, but the ultimate goal is to rank for the keywords that they care about the most. Okay, so yeah. I may do that in a metropolitan location if I think it's not super competitive, but if it's a really competitive, like let's say I went after personal injury, which is the most competitive on the local level. I wouldn't go after like Chicago personal injury lawyer. I'd probably go after like a suburb outside of Chicago, and then rank for all those keywords and then use that as my portfolio, my leverage to close those personal injury lawyers in that location. And then you can kind of get this compound effect, right? Once you get them in, then you get them results, and then your portfolio grows and it allows you to get more clients. So the key is to have a portfolio. And this is like the beauty of SEO, which is kind of different than a lot of other marketing channels, is you can actually get results without clients to use as your portfolio. Like that's kind of the cool thing. And that's literally what I did when I started. When I was starting to get clients, I didn't work with any clients, so I had no results with specific clients, but I had results from all the websites I was building. So I spent 2 years just building these random niche websites, and I had all these results. So I just used those, and I was like, look, I know how to do this. And that, like, if I could go back, the one thing I would switch is like getting really granular about who I wanted to go after, which I did not do in the beginning. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, glad to help. Good luck.
Really cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Alex, go for it.
Hello, Nathan. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm doing great. How are you?
The pond. Yeah, doing really well. Literally, since this arrived like 2 weeks ago, I've had this by the side of my desk, and I've also got this thanks to your book. So thanks.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Books. Yeah, £3 from Amazon. I mean, nearly bankrupt to me, but it's okay.
Well,
I'm kidding. Yeah, so I've got a quick question on the local SEO level. So I've got a couple of clients. I picked my niche. That book was massively helped with that as well. So I've got a couple of clients, and what happens is, actually, the first part of my question is in terms of, let's say you get two clients, they come to you and they're in the same area. So in the UK, obviously it's a smaller land area than the other area. And I know that, I think in your interview with the guy from rankings.io, he talked about how the competition, you're going to be competing with everyone, so go for it all the time. Obviously I'm a kind of starting up guy. So for me, it's more tempting to say yes, just because it's an easy win. And never say which companies I work with or anything, or limit it to 2 or something like that. So what would you recommend your approach be for that if you've got 2 people in a similar area who are both wanting to work with you? Or let's say you're working with one and then you get another one in the same area.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would definitely begin with kind of what you think your policy should be in the early stages. Now, obviously, I had the interview with Chris Dreyer, and Chris is just very far ahead. Right. So I think, like the advice he's giving today is not necessarily the advice he might give if he was starting right now. Right. And so the reason is because like Chris has really tapped out his market a lot. Like he's basically just dominated the market. And so because he's dominated his market, now he's starting to say like, well, now we're going to have to start taking on 2 per city or maybe 3 per city. Like, he literally has to, because he's tapped out his market so much. I think though, in the beginning, the biggest sales proposition that you have is I'm only taking 1 client in this city and that is it. And it's going to be you. Like that is so powerful when you can say that. And guess what? You can use it as leverage too. Say, you know what? Okay. You don't want it. No worries. I got, John Doe over there who wants to work with me. So, it's cool. If you want to work, you just let me know, but I'm going to go ahead and send this proposal to him instead. So, you leverage the exclusivity. It really is powerful from a sales perspective, right? Now, from a logistics SEO perspective, it's also difficult to work with 2 clients in the same city and the same service offering, right? Because it's a little awkward. Like who's gonna win here? And then if they knew, they'd be like, well, why is, law firm
Right.
A beating me? Right. So it gets a little weird. But I think at a honestly max of 2 is, for just my personal opinion. I think once you get above 2, then it starts to get really awkward. And of course, you're always going to give more weight to the one that's paying you the most. So, but I think in the beginning, like, exclusivity is really, really powerful. And you think about it, like, I'm talking like just one city. So like and obviously I don't know other countries as well, but at least in the United States where I live, like I live in St. Louis County. Okay. St. Louis County has many, many cities in it. Like many. I could just get a personal injury lawyer in every little city in St. Louis County. Like I could get probably 20 just from that alone. So I'm actually putting out a video on YouTube here pretty soon. But one of the things I say in the video is, like, if you want to get big, you have to think small. It's funny because I have a book on my shelf over here called, like, I don't know, the 10x rule. And then I've got some other ones like
Right.
think big or whatever. And like, we're basically conditioned now to, like, you have to think so massive to, like, build a huge business. But like in reality, when it comes to building an SEO business or building an agency in general, smaller is better. I mean, Amazon sold books. Like, people seem to forget these things. Like, Amazon started just selling books. They didn't start as owning, Whole Foods. Like, it's not, they didn't start like that. So yeah, get really granular. And this is like, I've experienced this even in my own business, like with Gotcha SEO Academy. Like, I've opened Gotcha SEO Academy up to, like, we're just an SEO training program. Yay. And we're just for everyone, right? Conversions go down, sales go down, everything goes down. As soon as I switch it back, and I've tested this, and people in the academy know this, I test it and I change it back to SEO training program for agencies. Sales go up, conversions go up, everything goes up, because now I'm speaking to someone, right? I'm speaking to someone. They come to my page. If it's just, how many SEO training programs are there? There's a lot of SEO courses, a lot of SEO training programs. But now I've got a specific vertical that, maybe I got one competitor that I'm up against, basically, right? So, yeah, I feel like I'm a broken record because I talk about this so much, but I just know the power of it. So, so that was my long-winded answer to your question.
That is really useful to hear, honestly, because with these, I don't really want to name in, but there are certain micro niches that you can go into inside of it, and maybe it's a limiting belief, but to me, I'm like, well, it's going to be too small. You've got 2 little people, and there's one in particular that I know one deal would be huge for them. It'd be less volume, but they get one of them and it's massive. And I have generated those leads for one of my clients especially, and it's proven really well. But there's still a limiting belief where it's going, no, just stick in this general niche that's working right now. But I am very tempted to go even deeper, even though that would be maybe less lead volume. And on paper, psychologically, I'm thinking, right, well, instead of 100 traffic for this keyword, it's now 20 or whatever on Ahrefs. Obviously, that's not entirely accurate, but you get my point.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm like, well, I can just make blog posts and pages on those specific things. But that's really nice to hear with how you structured your academy and how the impressions went up when you went more specific. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, by the end of the year, my one of my big goals is to apply to your academy and see if I get in. Hopefully I'll see you there. But thank you very much.
My pleasure. Yeah, glad to help. And congrats, man. You're doing well.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
All right. Let's see here. Victor, go for it. Victor, you're up. Oh, wait. Hold on one sec here. Hold on. I just had an issue here. 1 second. Where did Victor go? Oh, gosh. 1 second, guys. Let me see here. Okay. Victor. Okay. You should be able to unmute now, Victor, if you're still here.
Hey, Nathan, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Victor. Sorry about that.
Hey, perfect. How you doing? Good?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Really happy to be here with you and everybody. Just to give you a kind of a picture of the situation I'm in. So I'm building a website for a towing company, and they do towing, they do roadside assistance. And then, so I think this one's a little bit different for me in where I'm not too sure how I'm supposed to build the silo structure for this company. It could be pretty simple because they're a towing company, they're roadside, it's very SEO local SEO. But I think that's the first part of the question, and then it kind of leads into, where do the blog posts fit in with like long tail keywords or FAQs, and then after that the links. So like, where do we point the links? Is it to the guest posts, or sorry, is it using guest posts? What type of links, and where are they kind of pointing to? There's a lot of detail in between all of this. So maybe you can kind of like just start there and can give me some the best answer that you can, and then
Yeah. So a couple of questions. Are they single location or multi-location? Multi-location. Okay. So for me, everything begins and ends with keyword research, right? Because if you don't build your keyword database, you don't get a good understanding of, the potential keywords, then it's going to be kind of this like guessing type of experience, right? So what I always begin with keyword research, get that squared away, and then we can start to map out those keywords to the appropriate pages on the site, right? So I always begin bottom of the funnel and then work my way up. So bottom of the funnel just means that I'm going to focus on the keywords that have commercial intent. So in the case of your business here, you said it's towing, right? Towing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say I'll use where I'm located, towing St. Louis. Obviously, we're gonna have to figure out what page we're gonna optimize for that kind of broader phrase. If they service basically one core location and then maybe a lot of secondary locations, sometimes it makes sense for that to be a homepage target for the let's say the big heavy hitter keyword that it is. Does depend on the future trajectory of what the business is going to do. Like if they're going to maybe expand outside into another state, that's a whole different discussion altogether. Or maybe they're going to expand into an even bigger city in the same state. Things start to get a little complicated, but let's just assume they're going to stay within one county-ish. Then probably homepage targeting on the most competitive keyword. Then after that, building out dedicated service pages for whatever the secondary type of services are. And on those service pages, I would still target whatever the main location is. So let's say it's St. Louis. I don't know what the secondary services are in this case, but I would build out those around the core location, and then those service pages would be in the main navigation. And so that's kind of what I would begin with is getting the main the main location squared away first. Once that's squared away, then we start thinking, okay, how do we go after, let's say, towing Chesterfield, right? Or emergency towing Baldwin, Missouri type of thing, right? In that case, now we're going to build out dedicated landing pages to support those keyword phrases. So that's kind of like the process that I go through is like really starting at those commercial pages, those service-based pages. Those have got to get squared away and build appropriately. And then once that's done, now we can start talking about like, how do we build topic authority on the local level? We could spend all day talking about that in particular. But usually my go-to is to start to think about what are some assets that we can create that are going to be linkable, right? One mistake people will make when they create informational content on the local level is they get so focused on traffic, right? Like I'm going to go into SEMrush and I'm going to find a keyword that's got a lot of search volume and I'm going to publish a blog post on our site here. The way you win on the local level is not like that. You need to treat your local content more like content marketing, not so much like SEO driven content per se. So like, for example, I'd be looking at like towing statistics in Clayton, Missouri.
Okay.
Like I'd be getting real near like how many people get towed in front of whatever sushi restaurant there is in Clayton, right? Like I know someone who got towed in front of this one. I'm thinking of this one restaurant where someone got towed. Like I'd be thinking about that. Like where can I start to create a bunch of reference based content, and this content won't necessarily drive traffic per se, but it still has utility because it's building that localized relevance. But also the beauty of this content is it's going to rank number one because no one is targeting it, and there's a small possibility that reporters who are looking to find reference data will find that content and link to it. So what I do is I try to put as many lines in the ocean as possible. And, just the 80-20 rule, maybe 20% of those might pick something up, but that 20% can be really, really good 20%. Right. So it's a reframing of your mind when it comes to local, because it's just a different content game on local. Like, just eliminate this idea that you need to build national based content. It just is totally ineffective. I see it all the time with I do discovery calls, and I'll look at the site ahead of time, and I'm like, I know what this discussion is going to be like, because I see their traffic's like going up and they're ranking for all this informational keywords on a national level. And then of course on the call, they're like, our SEO team, they seem like they're doing so well. We're getting so much more traffic, but our conversions haven't gone up at all. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not ranking for anything you actually need to rank for, which is actually going to drive leads. So yeah.
And so just for the longest time, I was going after FAQ questions and kind of as well as just keywords. They could be super low volume or high volume, and I was kind of like creating those as blog posts, and then basically linking to the service page and maybe some other pages that were very relevant. But I guess from what you're saying is like, okay, that's one way to do it, but you're also saying that there's another way to do it that's better, right?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, that approach, I always say it's like the 50% good approach, right? Like, because you're like you're 50% of the way to the like where it needs to be, because you're building topic relevance, but you're just building it typically on the topic itself, but not like the location typically. And you need to have both on the local level. You have to have both. And another kind of nuance on this is occasionally I'll give this advice and then I'll see someone kind of use it in the wrong way. And what they'll do is like, they'll take something with national intent and localize it, which is what you don't want to do. So for example, like, what is creatine? Okay. It doesn't matter whether you're in California or St. Louis, that answer does not change. So if there isn't local variance on that idea, then it's not something you should do ultimately. But like when you go back to towing, there's tons of variance on the local level, like how many people get towed in these locations, like how much does it cost to get towed in certain cities, like how many tow companies are there in certain cities. Like, my mind starts to go crazy with all the opportunity as far as data that I could provide. And you're not like inventing this data. You just go and find the existing data, you curate it, and now you've built a beautiful asset that builds potential topic authority, but also potential linkability. And then you can actually use that asset as a promotional vehicle to acquire links when you do your outreach, right? Or if you're buying links, either or, doesn't make a difference, but same thing. So
and just the basically the other part of the question real quick was the links. So like, I'm familiar with, you should start off with citations, obviously, and build some authority, momentum. A lot of stuff, videos that I watch from what you teach, and then but then kind of comes the guest posts if they're necessary. So guest posts alone are very expensive. Like, I mean, on average they seem like they're like $90 a pop. So I when a client is saying how much is each link going to cost, and is that link going to stay with us, or is it going to drop off, kind of thing. And honestly, I've been trying to give them the best answer that, it probably would drop off. But I want to know, like, I don't know, man, like, where to get quality links. I have a feeling we have to purchase a bunch of them. And like, does it really have to be this way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
loaded question for
$90.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the local level, like beginning with citations is a good foundational move. I think there's some foundational link types that are just good to basically build a nice base layer for the eventual editorial based link building. And a few of those that I would focus on in the beginning. Number one is citations. Number two, I would honestly do like a big press release. And the reason for that is that you can just help drive a little bit of brand activity. It's not going to, like, a lot of the press releases won't get indexed. So, but it's more just to like get just a little more foundational stuff. You're going to get a bunch of unoptimized anchor text coming into the site, which is also really good. And then the third one of that is also securing all your branded properties as well. So securing all your branded properties across all the relevant social assets, another good thing you can do. And then, even populating some of those assets with a little content just so they get indexed. And that will help you kind of control reputation too in the SERPs, right? So this is kind of like foundational layer stuff that you should have, like bare minimum type of stuff. After that, then I would start thinking more about like, is there an opportunity for digital PR? And so when I say digital PR, what I'm talking about is there a figurehead at that business that we can leverage, right? So like, just using the context of like my business, I go and get interviewed on SEO podcasts, okay? And I get a link back to my homepage, right? And I'm building authority. I'm building strength of my site, which then floods into the rest of my pages, right? So trying to see if there's an opportunity. And a lot of businesses they do have typically some sort of figurehead that you can kind of leverage in different ways, either getting interviewed in the local market, ideally. Like there's a lot, you'd be surprised how many podcasts there are just in the city. Like there's all these like St. Louis podcasts, like there's tons that you could jump on. They're just dying for guests. Like they are. Like there's so many. Like they're not super popular. But once again, that localized relevance is so key. And especially now we're talking about offsite. Once again, it's the same concept, localized relevance. So I'm looking at opportunities for that on the local level. I'll even look national for those as well, just because it doesn't hurt. And then I'm also looking, maybe are there sponsorship opportunities? Are there donation opportunities in the local area? Once again, you'd be so surprised how many softball teams want $50 for a donation. You'll score a do follow link on like their homepage. You'd be really surprised. So that's where I begin, is like trying to find those localized opportunities. And then after that, once I've kind of tapped it out, I'll start to look at like local news websites as well. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I went on like my local news here in St. Louis and I talked about my book, and it cost me $2,500 to go on there. 2,500. But I got a link on their site. I got exposure. I got branding activity. I got all this good stuff that are all positive signals towards the brand. And you think about in a world of AI content and nonsense artificial stuff going on, if you can do something that like that, it separates you dramatically from everyone else. So that's where I begin.
And link those to the homepage for the most part, or are they going?
If you can get a deep link, absolutely. But for digital PR, it's probably going to basically all be going to the homepage typically. So, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. And then once you're going to have a lot of work to do just on everything I've described. But after that, then I start to look at like, okay, what are some like blogs that we can go after that are relevant to this industry, right? Start to look into those. And it may be some guest posting. It may be looking like finding individual pages that are hyper relevant to what I'm trying to promote and be like, hey, saw you have a blog post about, towing statistics. I actually just did a whole study on, all these towing statistics in Chesterfield. Would you want to check it out, type of thing? Now, here is the key. And I know we've got 75 people on here. I'm sure everyone's got their own opinions about buying links. Okay.
Yeah.
But money talks here. Okay. And I'm just going to be totally truthful with you guys. I've sent thousands and thousands and thousands of outreach emails. I know what works, and I'll tell you what works. And I teach this inside of my training. Everyone in our training does exactly this. You lead with paid collaboration. Send an email to your prospect, paid collaboration, the subject line, your open rate will double. Just try it. Just try it. Do not send anything that's like, hey, can we do a guest post on your website? You'll just sound like every other link builder in the world that's trying to just score a link. It is, if you're doing that, you have to play the numbers game. Good luck. And the reason why I know this is effective is because like the collaborations that I have accepted, it was when they paid me, right? So like when I did my collaboration with SEMrush, like they paid me a good amount of money. They didn't lead with like, hey, do you want to do some videos for free for us? I'd be like, no, like I would never do that. Are you insane?
Right.
You guys are a publicly traded company. I'm not going to do anything for free for you. So they of course they were smart, and I'm doing a collaboration with HubSpot right now. Same thing. They reach out, they say, paid collaboration. You know how quickly I open that email? Like a split second, right? Because yeah, you're going to pay me for placement. Yeah, of course, I would love to do it. Now I'm actually receptive to the idea. Unfortunately, like the old school tactics of like, because you do need to find a value proposition. I used to be able to do like, hey, I saw you got a broken link on your site, Victor. Would you mind linking to us? It just doesn't work. That like, you might as well not even try, because no one's going to do that. Everyone knows the game these days. There's so many people trying to acquire links. I mean, how many freaking link building companies are there at this point? There's this lost count of the amount of link building companies are. So the way to win is to, especially local, focus locally. No one really focuses there at all, which means it's just untapped completely. And then once you've tapped that out, then start to move into the more national based link types, but just make sure you're really driving most of those links to assets. It's not that you can't drive links to service pages. You certainly can, and I do, but it's also making sure that it's balanced, right? I don't want to look at a link profile and see that 90% of the links are going to personal injury Chesterfield landing page. That's not what we want to go for. We want to be a little more subtle with our linking behaviors. So
so homepage a little bit.
Threw a lot at you
all
there,
good.
But
no, it was a really loaded question. I really appreciate it. It gave me a lot of what I needed. So I'll start there. It seems like a lot of work to do. So thanks so much, Nathan. You're the man.
Yep. Glad to help.
Cheers.
Glad to help. All right. Let's see. Harmon, go for it.
Hey Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Actually, I make websites for small to medium-sized businesses, and I'm located in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada.
Okay.
And my site is like 1 year old, and it only had like 3 pages for a year, like a website design homepage and a contact us page. And recently, I started making landing pages for cities. But like I don't know why, but those pages are not ranking. Those pages are on like 7th or 8th page of Google.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a website of that size, and especially if it's only been a year, I would suspect that you don't have a lot of authority from a link building perspective. So, if you're like, when you're in that sweet spot of like page 5 and beyond, actually, I shouldn't call it a sweet spot. It's just a not great spot, but at least you're in the top 100. If you're in that range, all that indicates to me is that you just lack authority. So the only way to resolve that is you just have to start acquiring links. And like going back to the last kind of recommendations for the previous person, I'd be looking locally in Canada and the city that you're in. Begin there. Because that will give you a lot of strength, especially if you have a Google Business Profile. It actually does support Google Business Profile performance as well. So you're really getting benefits on both fronts.
I started doing SEO from last 3 months, and my Google business profile used to rank around ninth spot on Google, and now it's ranking first on Google for my city.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I'm getting most of my business from GMB listing, but I want to rank my pages as well. So myself, like, I find the problem is that I'm roaming on blog writing. Sometimes I go for backlinking and sometimes for on-page metrics. So I just have one question, like, what would you suggest me to focus on, like, for backlinking or like what?
So I'm pretty extreme about this. I believe that a new website should spend almost all of its time trying to get links. I think it's almost a waste of time to create content for a brand new site. I mean, it's just the content's not going to rank. It's just a waste of time. So you should just be really focusing your time on just growing site authority. And until you get to like whether you're using Ahrefs or SEMrush, but like, let's say a DR of 20, 25, potentially even 30, then at that point, now we can start talking about like, let's start increasing content velocity. But until that point, I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of just wasted effort, right? Like, so what I do with the new site is I will build one, possibly three linkable assets. That's it. Like 1 to 3 linkable assets. And then I will spend 100% of my remaining time just getting links. That's it, to those assets. Yep. And I won't stop until I see the performance that I'm looking for. So like, for example, I have a page, you guys can look this up if you want, but St. Louis SEO consultant. If you search that keyword, you'll find my site. Okay.
Yeah.
It should be ranking number 1. But that page, the reason why that site's unique is it's one page. There's no other pages on that site. It is literally one page. And all I did was build one page, and I spent a year just acquiring links to it. Just boom, boom, boom. I just kept hitting it with just over and over and over. And I actually showed this progression of this ranking and this page in the Academy. I literally built this site in our SEO agency accelerator just to prove how effective this can be. I did it live, and it still ranks, right? So just to demonstrate once again that this is a game of links, right? It's easy to overthink and be like, I need to publish all this blog content. I need to do all. No, just bare minimum content and then hyper focus on link acquisition. It is the difference maker. Because at the end of the day, think about this. Anyone can just publish content. Like anyone can do it. You just go open it. You can start your WordPress site today and publish as much content as you want. So why would Google value just content in general? It doesn't even have the ability to know what a good piece of content is. All it has is the ability to look at external metrics to determine that that's a page that's worth showing, right? And those external metrics, links, we do know that user signals are used to a certain extent, but that's basically it, right? That's all it can really use to know. And in fact, even in Google's being sued, and they've released that they basically guess a lot of the time as far as what the content's even about. So, yeah, more links.
So I have DR of 33 on Ahrefs. And
what did you say? A DR of 3?
33.
33?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's higher than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in a scenario like this, then honestly, and I'm not trying to like pitch anything here, but like I haven't really promoted this a whole lot to anyone and really to my audience at all. And I got like audience of about 200,000 people, and I haven't really promoted this, but I do have a ranking diagnosis checklist that's specific. Like it's in the Academy, but you can get it separately. In this scenario, I think it would be wise for you to go through that checklist. Because what it's going to do is you're going to be able to put your keyword in there that you're trying to rank for, and then you can go through this checklist, from end to end. I'll drop a link in the chat here, and you guys can see it. Let's see here. Okay, I dropped a link in the chat, but this checklist is insane. It's insane. And it's, in fact, this is the exact thing that I use in all of our agency campaigns. Like if we have a keyword that's stuck, run the keyword through this checklist, and it's literally impossible to pass every single point if you're not ranking number one. It's impossible. I would tell you that it's literally impossible. I've never seen it
Okay.
happen. So you will find at least 2, 3, potentially 5 opportunities on your single URL with this checklist. So I would highly recommend going through it for sure. Yeah, and it comes with
Okay.
an SOP.
Thank you.
It comes with an SOP too, so like showing you each how to do the whole thing. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, Ryan, go for it. Ryan, Brazil.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, sorry. A few people touched on it. Just I guess going into 2024, and you said like Clutch has like 40,000 people that are offering all the stuff we are, unless we're doing niche sites ourselves.
Yeah.
What's something like new that for outreach? Like what can we do to change the game? I guess like micro niche instead of sub niche, like it's just getting more granular, I guess. But is there anything
Yes.
that like with AI, given that there's some of these crazy tools, like I don't approve of all of them, but just maybe share something that can ruin our day too, or improve our day, ruin our day. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll try not to ruin your day, but yeah, I mean, if you're building niche sites, like it's tough out there right now. But I will tell you that the way to combat this is you cannot play any old games that used to be played. And the old games that used to be played, and I used to play them too, which is just publish as much content as possible and then try to do it that way. I'm very opposed to that. I really think, and like just how I just described that previous one, even for a niche site, that's the way I would build a niche site these days. Is I would, let's say I was going to be reviewing camera lights. I got a big huge light over here for my videos. Like if I was going to be reviewing camera lights, like I'd probably build one site all around just camera lights, like video production lights, and that would be it. I'm serious. I know I wouldn't even think about doing anything else until I've absolutely hit every nook and cranny of that industry. And once I've done that, then I would consider, okay, maybe I'll branch into doing microphones for video, right? Like I'd go into a secondary niche that supports it. But yeah, I think these days you got to get hyper granular. One of the best sites I like to look at as far as like really good product reviews, really good affiliate sites is Ratings or RTings. So it's RTINGS.com, RTings.com. They are the perfect example of how to do affiliate marketing. I mean, and you'll see it's not easy. Like you actually got to buy the stuff, right? And like that's not so simple. So, but I think the days of like going on Amazon and just like scraping Amazon reviews and using ChatGPT to like create some fake review, that can work in the short term. Definitely. Long term, you will eventually get hit. So, I think this is definitely a game of quality over quantity these days. And of course, that's by design, right? I mean, Google does not want a bunch of fake reviews in the search results. Like they want to see, this is why they added the extra E to the EAT guidelines, which is the experience component. They did this specifically, at least in my theory, because they wanted to combat AI content. And the only way to combat AI content is for people to demonstrate real experience using specific products, right? So, and that's also why Reddit has gotten so much weight as well, because Reddit is clearly, I mean, there is AI generated content on Reddit, but a lot of these threads, like you can tell it's not AI content. It's just someone with really bad English or someone who doesn't write super well. Like it's very clear because the AI content is usually like immaculate. It does not make mistakes typically, as far as the cadence of its writing. So anyway, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Dale, go for it. You should be good to go.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, awesome. Well, let me get some lights on here so we can see me too.
There you are.
Okay. Quick question. I got about 100 pages, and what's the best way to keep track of all the SEO? So we're talking about a homepage, a title, description, keywords, a slug. When you get over 100 pages and there's like, now we got almost 100 blog pages, it gets I have keyword cannibalization going on now, and I've been told so by Google's. What's
Yeah.
your take? What's your skill set on that?
Yeah. So as far as organizing it, yeah, believe it or not, that's still a pretty small website by most standards. Sub 1,000 pages is pretty manageable for the most part. But if let's say I was starting on your site today, right? What I would do, first thing I would do is I would put your site in a Screaming Frog, get all my data points, and I would export that data and put it into a Google Sheet. Like I have a template that I use personally for audits, but I put into a Google Sheet, and then my team member would start to map out the keywords to map to those individual URLs. The other way around that too is you can actually just go into Ahrefs or SEMrush, export your entire organic keyword profile, and then you can start to assign, specifically the keywords to your URLs. So it's kind of the only way to do it as far as mapping it out. And if you're dealing with keyword cannibalization, that's something you should definitely try to resolve. But the best way to resolve that is typically through doing a Screaming Frog crawl and export. Because what I'll do is I'd go into the crawl and the export, and I would look under the title column. So I'll show you real quickly here. I'll do kind of a example. Let's see if I can pull my dashboard here. Okay, let's see here. So this is specifically for the Academy, so it might look a little wild. But this is just a demo. But basically, what I would do here, and there's some added stuff in here, but I would go over to this title column, okay? And this is from Screaming Frog, by the way. So go to this title column, and I'd actually go to the text contains, and I would just start to search like seed keywords to find the keyword cannibalization. So I would search something like, just obviously SEO is going to pop up a lot on mine, but it's not cannibalized. But that's how I begin, right? And I would start to put those cannibalized pages into a bucket, and then from there, I can figure out like, okay, what am I going to do with this set of cannibalized pages, right? So that's where I typically go to find it. You can of course find it in Ahrefs and SEMrush by looking at you can look at the keyword data and see is there a URL that keeps popping in and out as far as the rankings. That's a way to do it too. But I've just found the manual way of doing it is the best because I get a good idea. I can see every single indexed URL. I get a good idea of what's going down. So
okay, so
yeah.
you found Screaming Frog to be the best to kind of give you the base data to work with, and then
correct
keep track of all of your pages. Because I'm thinking, geez, if I want to start scaling this to another couple hundred pages, I got to get my act together.
Yeah, well, and especially having all of your keywords mapped to a URL is the most critical thing to do. It's very time consuming to do that, but it's really good. Yeah. It's good to have it because then you can get a really good idea of the performance of those keywords. And honestly, what I do once I get them all mapped out, this is pretty crazy, but I'll take each primary keyword, let's say one keyword per page. I'll put all of them into a rank tracker, and I'll get a benchmark for where they all are currently. I want to see where they're ranking right now.
Each word.
And every single keyword, every single primary keyword for that, for each individual URL. And that way I can look, I'm like, okay, we've got a lot of keywords that need help, right? And so that's the best place to start. So, yep.
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Okay, John, you've been very patient.
That was a perfect question right before I came in. And thank you I got the book and
oh, awesome.
About to start it. And just thank you for answering all these questions.
Of course.
I have a e-commerce site and I believe I'm dealing with keyword cannibalization. In December, I had about 100,000 visitors, and January, a month later, it's down to about 30,000. And I don't think it was necessarily a Google update that did that. And I'm thinking it's cannibalization. But the general question would be, when you're thinking about a home page, what term would do you go after the brand name for that home page as far as the target of what you're using the keyword for, or are you going after, say, the main category? Let's just say we have a window blinds company, and
Okay.
you have, window blinds would be kind of the big top category, and then you would have things like, faux wood blinds or mini blinds or vertical blinds and all those different categories.
Right.
Would you put window blinds as that topic for the homepage, or would you use that as the category page for e-commerce instead?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of domain that you have. And if you were windowblinds.com, then I would say the homepage is your best option. But if you're not windowblinds.com, then your best option is probably to keep the homepage branded, personally, because homepages just are not easy to rank when it comes to keyword driven stuff. And so usually I'll try to keep it branded. And like I said, the only exception is if it's an exact match domain. So like the example I gave about St. Louis SEO Consultant, it's stlouisseoconsultant.com. It wouldn't make sense for me to build a dedicated page that targets St. Louis SEO Consultant. Like the homepage is the page to target, right? So so in this case, I would if you're not exact match, go branded and then build out your category pages. That's the way that I would personally do it. Yeah.
Because the category, I mean, if you're looking at example window blinds, that would be a category, like a big category, and then you'd have
Correct.
subcategories off of that. The brand that we have does have a name that is highly sought after, and it probably brings in 15,000 a month just on the brand name.
That's great.
So I would assume that that would be the homepage, just target that. I think what I did was I put in a word and an H1 tag, and I'm thinking that's what happened that took away all that traffic, because we had already had a category page that had that main category.
Yeah.
And I think it sucked everything out by doing that. It was just competing. The two pages were competing against each other.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I without seeing the site, I can't give you like a full like diagnosis, but occasionally a small change like that could have big repercussions. But when you tell me 100 to 30, I would be looking into bigger action levers that could cause that. I don't know if there's seasonality in your industry. I don't know if there is, but like
there is definitely some seasonality.
Okay, so if there's seasonality, maybe that's a part of it too. But but yeah, that's a big draw. That's a big draw.
I've compared it to last year's or 2003's stats, and it didn't drop anything like that in 2003 or 2002, excuse me. So it's had me scratching my head, and it's a big enough thing to where, we're talking hundreds, if not millions of dollars in a change. So
yeah, well, honestly, what I would do is, depending on what tool you use, whatever your preference is, Ahrefs, SEMrush. Okay. So with Ahrefs, you can go in and look at the traffic loss like on a per keyword basis. So you can go and see like where has there been traffic loss, and you can do a comparison from where you are today and where you were last year, and you could see the comparison of traffic difference. You'll probably be able to find the culprit of what it is.
Yeah, I have done that, and the interesting thing is Google's changing so much on the e-commerce side, where merchant accounts are, dominating the top, where we used to be number one for this term, and now we're hovering like around 7 or 8. And there's just so much more that we're having to compete with because of Google putting in all the ads and all the various other things that Google kind of dominates with.
It's tough right now.
2023 has been a very difficult year with all the additions that they've done.
Yeah. Well, and this is like, I don't know if you're here on the earlier on the call, but this is why tracking individual keywords is so important, because it can be that kind of benchmark where you can look at it like, well, our keywords haven't really moved, but our traffic's gone down substantially. Let's go investigate the SERPs and see what's going down. I've seen those e-commerce SERPs myself. They are brutal right now. I mean, they are like, Google's like basically trying to not let anyone get traffic except for advertisers. Yeah. So, and even the way they've added that filter on the left-hand side of the SERPs, like it almost looks like Google's now an e-commerce store. So it's become very odd. and
It's
it's tough out there.
I'm
So
hoping
yeah.
for some changes, but I don't really think they're going to be going back to the old days. Seems like this is their trend.
I wouldn't bank on it. No.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much for your answer. I appreciate it.
yes, my pleasure. All right. JD, go for it.
Hey Nathan, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for your time. So actually, we spoke last week. I got a little site that focuses on a niche, and what I did since we spoke last week is I wrote a blog post. I did a beautiful piece of content, ran it through all kinds of tools to make sure it was unique and all this and all that. So I love the blog post, but I also wanted it to be a category page because I mean, not a category page, underneath a category page. Like it's a real good piece of content that makes sense to my website. So I didn't think it made sense just as a blog. So I published it underneath one of my category pages as a new piece of content, in the hierarchy there. And then what I did is I also published it as the blog. And then I thought I would make the canonical, or whatever they call it, link the page, and the blog would be there, but the blog would point to that, the canonical or whatever would point to the page. You following me so far?
Yes, I'm following you. Yeah.
All right, so I've got two pages with the exact same content. So
Okay.
within a day of doing that, the blog for the keyword I was trying to go for there, it ranked number one on Google, but it ranked the blog. And I'm wondering, I was trying to get the page, right? But it ranked the blog. And I'm wondering if that's a legit strategy and I can keep those both posted and the canonical is going to do what it's supposed to do, or what might be going on there.
Yeah. Well, in a perfect world, Google would honor your canonical tags, but Google doesn't honor a lot of stuff. So, so yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game to play, is all I can say, right? I mean, I would be very careful playing that game because Google just is very inconsistent with what they're going to pick as the preferred version of an asset. And that's what you're signaling when you do a canonical tag. You're telling Google, I want this to be the preferred version that you index. Like I said, in a perfect world, Google would do that, but it doesn't always do that. In fact, just recently, there's been a lot of chatter about Google, ranking pages or ranking content on other sites that was not even the original source of the content, right? And so yeah, it's a dangerous game. As far as content on your site, I mean, I would just pick a page and publish it there and leave it like that. Don't distribute it anywhere else on the site.
It seems like the blog is easier to rank than a page.
Well, then do that. So yeah, I mean, the only variance, like, so on like WordPress in particular, when I'm building a page versus a blog post per se, I'm usually building a page when it's something that I feel is more commercial. I will do that. If it's something that's more informational in nature, it's going to go on the blog. So that's the way that I kind of distinguish those two. And Google does tend to crawl blog content more frequently because it's usually prioritized in the navigation better than just, let's call it, an orphan page that you created that may not have a lot of internal link coverage or architecture related to it. So the blog typically will get crawled and indexed better, which means if it gets crawled and indexed better, it likely might rank better if it's a head-to-head competition. So yeah.
But the website can have two of the same pages because you can have category pages that are, summarized in other pages. So is there any downside to if you have two of the same pages with the same content, as long as you're pointed to one as the canonical?
I would not have any pages on the site that have the same content.
Really?
Personally,
Okay.
never. Yeah.
So then when you're drilling down inside the category, because, I'm looking at your reverse triangle pyramid that you put together that you were talking about earlier. So if you're coming down, when you get to that category and the category basically that blog post makes perfect sense underneath that category. You essentially link the blog post to the category, and then you link the category back to the blog post, and that's just how you deal with it. So that you can have that information underneath the category page.
Well, the thing is, you can do whatever you want, but as far as what's going to be most effective, I just personally, I would not. Every page on my site needs to be unique. That's my rule, right?
Okay.
And even like I don't even want to play the canonical tag game because I just know Google doesn't always honor it, and I know Google could potentially, if it doesn't honor that canonical tag, is just going to view it as duplicate content, right? And that happens a lot. In fact, there's people that do that. They'll like put out a blog post and like turn it into a press release and then put it on their website, and like all kinds of weird stuff happens all the time. But just general rule of thumb, like unique content for every single page. So that's just my rule personally. So yeah.
And so then if you have a category, you just link in it, and this page is great content, you just link the category page down to that blog post. Call it a day.
Correct. Yeah, if they're unique. Yep. You're linking unique pages together. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That's it.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Amir, go for it.
Hi, Nitin. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I have been taking notes from the whole meeting about paid collaboration, linkable asset, and reward silo and screaming frog. So, you're doing great. Thank you. I just have a quick question, and I am running an e-commerce store, and I have an issue that my product pages are ranking, but my collection pages are not ranking, the category pages. I don't know what is happening. I have removed the keyword from the product pages, and still it happens. So it due to the link structure or internal linking issue or the lack of backlinks or something else.
Yeah, I mean it could be a lot of issues, right? But usually, you know, when in general, like if Google is prioritizing one page over another, you begin with the architecture, like begin with the architecture and see like, is this page getting more internal link coverage? Is it further up in the architecture? If it's a product page, it shouldn't be further up in the architecture, but it could somehow be getting more internal link coverage. The product page may have heavier content, right? So maybe this has more actual words, actual meat on there, which allows Google to understand that page better, and therefore it's preferring that page over a category that might be thin. And then the other part of it is links. Maybe that product page got a couple more links, right? Externally. So, like I said, it could be a variety of things. And so, yeah, it's tough without me seeing the site. Yeah.
It could be related to the semantics because we are selling something like motorbike suits, and we are covering all of the drivers of the motorsports, and we have focus. We have written more than 20 to I think 40 to 60 blogs on the driver pages, and maybe the Google is thinking that we are more focused on the driver biography instead of the e-commerce. That might be the reasons. What do you say about it?
Potentially.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like the way to solve problems like this is usually either to try under optimizing assets. I will try that. And then if that doesn't resolve it, then I know it's probably a link-based issue. And if I need to like if I want a certain page to perform over another page, then I'm just going to allocate my link resources to that page. And also allocate my internal link resources towards that page too. Because what I'm doing is I'm trying to instruct Google on what I want it to do. Like that's the thing with like people. I think sometimes people think with Google like they're at the mercy of Google, but I try to own Google. I want Google. I want to dictate what Google can do. So I'm trying to make the decisions to guide it in the way that I want it to be guided. So that's what I'd be thinking about. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I got the answer. Thank you so much, Nathan.
My pleasure. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's see. Karen, you've been very patient. You're up. Let's see. Okay.
Hi there.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Hi. First, I really admire you and everything you teach us. I've been a big fan.
Oh, awesome. Glad to hear that.
I'm a headshot photographer in Los Angeles, and it's basically for my own site. And I'm I'm located about an hour outside of Los Angeles. And I used to target my local town that had the most population, which is Thousand Oaks. Then later it was recommended that I switch my homepage to target Los Angeles. And I did that, and I'm not sure I should have done that. So it's more like a strategy question.
Yeah.
So right now, I think I'm ranking anywhere between 7 and 10 for Los Angeles headshot photographer.
Okay.
But locally, I also have a local page. I have a photographer near me in Thousand Oaks, and I come up like number 1 or somewhere between 1 and 3, usually after Yelp.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I should have done that. What do you recommend?
So I have this discussion a lot with a lot of local businesses, and even in the academy, we talk about this. It seems like we talk about this every call. So for me, like these days, I give a very different answer than I would have given maybe 5 years ago. And the reason is because the way that Google ranks locally these days, and these days, especially in the local pack, it wants to rank the most hyper relevant businesses in that area. And like, if you even go slightly outside of that core location, your rankings will tank. And so like if you go back and look at like a lot of the ranking maps people have, like all the little dots that they rank in all the different locations, it just doesn't happen anymore. And so these days being really focused. So like, let's say you mainly only service Thousand Oaks. Let's just say that. Maybe that's not the case, but let's just say you do. And maybe you've established your business in that area and you've been going for a long time. Well, what happens is Google starts to kind of put you into that Thousand Oaks bucket, right? And now you're a Thousand Oaks business and you've probably got a lot of authority there. You've got a lot of trust there, and you should be able to dominate in that location. But once you venture out into Los Angeles, now you've entered a different game. Now, so the way I view it these days is like it's an individual battle in every single city now. And the days of like building a site and be like, I'm going to be a headshot photographer in like all of Los Angeles County in every city with one site. Good luck. It's tough.
I have local pages. I built out probably, I don't know, 50 local pages from anywhere between Los Angeles to San Diego, because I also have a studio in San Diego. So I just built local pages for like every single one of those cities. In my local, I don't come up in the map pack in San Diego at all, because I'm only in Google My Business for like the Thousand Oaks area. And I really dominate. I come up in the map pack in all the local cities around Thousand Oaks. But I'm not in the map pack in Los Angeles, and in the organic rankings, I'm probably anywhere from 7 to 10. And I'm afraid sometimes I slip to page 2, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if I made a mistake doing that.
I mean, the fact that you're at least in 7 to 10 for Los Angeles, that's that's good. Like that's nothing to be upset about. But I think, let's just say if I was going to give you advice, if I was starting from scratch, I'd build one website targeting Thousand Oaks, and it would only target Thousand Oaks. That would be it. Then if I wanted to go into Los Angeles, honestly, I'd probably build out another site just for Los Angeles. That's the way I would treat it.
But then when people call me and they say, oh, you're not in LA, you're in Thousand Oaks, people don't want to drive an hour.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like if you don't actually service Los Angeles, then that's kind of your answer, right?
Well, I do if I go on location and drive to them. And sometimes they'll drive to me. I've had customers that drive 2 hours, 3 hours to come to me, but the majority of my people are the local Thousand Oaks people. Right. So I don't know if I made a big mistake doing that. I've been in business 15 years, and my DA rating is like around 21 on Moz.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say if you made a mistake, because I mean, if you're ranking in Thousand Oaks where you want to be ranking, then you should be happy about that. If you're trying to improve your performance in Los Angeles, I'm assuming competition is much higher in Los Angeles for headshot photographers because it's a larger city. I know that area well. I'm from there. So yeah, yeah. So to be able to rank in Los Angeles, to go from number 7 to number 1, let's say just in the traditional organic, it's probably going to be a matter of having to build more topic relevance and build more links probably to get there. If you want to rank in the Google in the local pack in Los Angeles, you're going to need another address. That's the only way it will work. There's just no way you'll rank in. It's too far of a distance. So
well, I just didn't know. Do I need to keep buying backlinks? I mean, how do I get my ranking up?
The short answer is yes, you need to keep acquiring links if Los Angeles is really important to you. If it is really important to you, then yeah, you're probably gonna have to continue to acquire links for sure. But I would start thinking about how you can build more assets for Los Angeles specifically. So like if you have like specific case studies or things that you can share, like stories for jobs that you've done that are in Los Angeles, and posting that on the blog and then linking to your Los Angeles page, that's really valuable. So showcasing client results, showcasing client, all that stuff. Oh, hold on a sec. I've got my kids coming in. Oh, 1 second. 1 second, guys. Okay. Yeah. We're getting past that time. So yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if I made a mistake because my site has been up for 15 years. And, and then I kind of did that maybe 10 years into it, and I didn't know if I should have. Because I'm not getting a lot of calls right now. My business is floundering a little bit, and I think it's because, I don't know if it's because of the quality of cell phones or if it's the economy, but I'm just like, I'm not getting a lot of calls. I was getting more calls during the pandemic, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't explain that part. That's a different kind of game altogether. It could be a lot of things. It could be, you could have conversion related issues, user experience related issues on the site too that could be causing that. So yeah, that's a tough one. But as far as like the overall SEO strategy, I mean, yeah, doubling down on Thousand Oaks, making sure you're really crushing it there should be the number one priority across the board. And if you can find any like sub services in Thousand Oaks that you also offer and ranking for those as well, that might be a way to kind of extract more value out of Thousand Oaks. These days, like I said, I'm about doubling down on certain areas. And then even like if you are getting organic traffic coming to the site, you could even run some retargeting too. You could venture into that world as well and retarget people specifically is like on Facebook and things like that in Thousand Oaks specifically. Like you can target Thousand Oaks, and when they come to your site, maybe they don't convert, you can hit them with a retargeting ad, or get them on your email list as well. So I'd start thinking about more kind of diversifying your marketing channels to, kind of accelerate your lead acquisition as well.
You mean like more paid ads like Google and Facebook?
Yes. Yep. Especially in particular retargeting though. Like if they come to your site and then to retarget them, because we know statistically only about 2 to 3% of website visitors convert to anything. So that means you're 97 to 98% of your visitors just leaving, right? So and then they end up on Facebook and they're watching cat videos, and then they see your ad and they're like, oh yeah, I remember Karen. Yeah, I need to go and book that headshot call, right? So it takes anywhere between, they say 7 to 21 touch points these days to get a lead. So if you think about it, if you just get your traffic from Google, someone comes to your site, that's one touch point. So you're basically trying to hit a home run every single time someone comes to your site. That like you're going to hit it perfectly every time. You got to get a way to bring them back in. That's the key. So and that's my strategy, right? Like I publish stuff on YouTube, and then I send an email, and then I send stuff on Twitter, and then you see me on an interview. Like that's all by design, right? I'm creating this, if you want to call it, omnipresence type of strategy to make sure that I'm hitting on a lot of different areas. That way I can get people back into my ecosystem, if you want to call it that. So yeah. So thinking broader than just SEO, I think would help for sure. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, glad to help. All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to call it quits, but I will plan on doing another one of these I'll say it via email when it will be, but hopefully soon. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for everyone to come on. Sorry that I couldn't get to everyone's questions, but we will definitely be back. Thanks again, guys. Talk soon.